Uncharted waters. That is where political pundits say Wisconsin is headed if state Republicans try to impeach Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasiewicz. The main questions surrounding impeachment have been when and why judges should step aside from hearing a case. And the two major parties couldn't be further apart on the issue. Now, impeachment in Wisconsin is limited to charges of corrupt conduct in office or committing a crime. Protasiewicz has not yet heard a case, but we know there are two lawsuits arguing the state's legislative maps should be redrawn. During her campaign, she said those maps were unfair and rigged, but stopped short of saying how she would rule in a case about redistricting. Now, Republicans argue those comments mean she has already prejudged the cases and should not be allowed to rule on them. But a 2002 U.S. Supreme Court ruling says all candidates have a right to publicly state their positions while campaigning. And with that precedent, the Wisconsin panel that investigates judges has dismissed the prejudging complaints against Protasiewicz. The state's Democratic Party chair says Protasiewicz recusing herself would mean canceling the will of 1 million Wisconsin voters. And a recent letter to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel feels the same way. It quoted former conservative Chief Justice Pat Roggensack, who said in 2010, when a judge is disqualified from participation, the votes of all who voted to elect that judge are canceled for all issues presented by that case. Nonprofit journalism sites like Wisconsin Watch have published reports citing third-party analysts who believe Wisconsin's maps are gerrymandered to favor Republicans. Former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker says there's no credible evidence of that, and that Wisconsin is competitive because so many Democrats are in Madison and Milwaukee. But Assembly Speaker Robin Vos seemed to confirm 2 years ago that the maps are gerrymandered.
Partisan advantage is not an intent of these maps.
Well, it's clearly a constitutional allowance. The Supreme Court, as you know, said that there is no problem. Yeah, there is no constitutional prohibition on that criteria. So yes, was partisanship considered as a consideration in the map? Yes, there were certain times that partisanship was.
And that's true. The Wisconsin Constitution really only requires legislative districts to consist of contiguous territory. But creative drawing from either majority party can still skew districts one way or the other. Now, the other argument for impeachment from Wisconsin Republicans is that Protasiewicz got $10 million from the Democratic Party during her campaign, and that means she can't rule fairly. But the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign reports all but one current justice have gotten contributions from a party. And the Associated Press reports conservative courts have allowed justices to hear cases involving their campaign donors since 2010. The Democratic Party is not behind the redistricting or abortion lawsuits, but they are, of course, topics in which an overturning would certainly benefit their party.